Okay, so let's get started. It's a long Perek, a lot of really great stuff in here. Okay. Perek Zion. Okay, and I have to resist the temptation to speak fast so we can cover everything. It's not going to be good if I do that. 1 second, where are we? Okay. Okay, why am I doing this? Okay. Can you see the source here? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Perek Zion. It's 40 psukim. But as Divrei HaYamim goes, it's kind of okay. There's a lot of very long psukim here. And what we have been doing, just to jump back for a minute, is we have been going with Ezra HaSofer back through the genealogies of the children of Israel, heading straight forward from Adam HaRishon till the time of the Bayesheni, and along the way, spending a lot of time with the Malchus Beis David, which is the goal, according to Ezra. The goal and the idea is to encourage the Jewish people. Now, we start in Zion with Bnei Yisachar. So just to backtrack a little bit, what we've been doing is going through different tribes. We started right away with Yaakov, which Divrei HaYamim is always called Yisrael, and we went from there to Yehuda, because Yehuda is the Malchus Beis David. We went from Yehuda to Shimon, and after Shimon, we went back, right, to the tribes of Reuven and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh. So this is the way it's been going in this order. And after we went through the 2.5 tribes, I think, 1 second, I think it's helpful to look at this map. Some of the order of going through the tribes is geographical. So if this is Yerushalayim, which is our center, we've gone down to Yehuda, which is the Malchus. Shimon is included. Then we've gone east to Reuven. Reuven is also the oldest Shevet, to Gad and Manasseh. And we've taken a detour through Levi, because after Reuven, Shimon does come Levi. Spent a lot of time with Levi, a whole chapter 6 is Levi and bits of chapter 5. And now we seem to be going geographically north. And we're hitting all the tribes that are north of Israel. We're starting with Yisachar. So Yisachar would not be perhaps the first choice, except that geographically, we've crossed over from Manasseh to Yisachar. And thematically, we've also moved, because the tribe of Yisachar, if you recall, there's the whole Yisachar-Zebulun dynamic. Yisachar does the Torah learning, and Zebulun does the commerce. This was their agreement. This is a very famous thing, right? And we had a sense that this kind of partnership, and we've seen it all through Jewish history, this is a great thing for the Jewish people. Some learn, some support learning, and this is a great thing. So Yisachar has produced Torah scholars. In fact, let me just find this. Here, Amar Rava says, right, Yisachar Yoru Mishpatech Yaakov, about Levi, and Yisachar b'nei Yisachar Yodei Bina Leitim Ladat Mayaseh Yisrael. Therefore, okay, we have this tradition from Rava that the Torah scholarship has to come from Levi or Yisachar. Now, this is not to negate other great scholars from other tribes, especially noted here in the Gemara Yehuda, right? I was speaking of those who draw conclusions according to halacha. Why is this going on? Okay, so you have to go a little bit ahead in Divrei HaYamim. I'll show you. in chapter 12, where we've gone through, we mentioned B'nai Yisachar Yodei Binal Itim. This is what the Rabbah is quoting in the Gemara. What does it mean, Yodei Binal Itim? Understanding the times. Now, the Radak talks about this. He actually mentions Megillat Esther, where it says the Yodei Dat Vadin, the people who know the times. So Radak explains it. Those are the people who know how to calculate time. So we have to know what is Rosh Chodesh. We have to know when the holidays come about. And that's something that's something that has to do with a great Torah scholarship. And these people, it says here, Yodei Binal Itim, and then we comment, Ladat Maya says, to know what Israel should do. And this seems to be understood, and Radak explains it here. This is the people who tell you when to celebrate the holidays, when Rosh Chodesh is. And that's a very important part of Torah scholarship. So we have two reasons that we start our story with Yisachar. As I said, we went back at the beginning of chapter 7. B'nai Yisachar. Number one, geographically, we've gone west and north of Jerusalem. And number two, thematically, we've gone from the Torah scholarship of Levi to the Torah scholarship of Yisachar. Now, in this chapter, we go through all the remaining tribes. For some reason, and nobody seems to know why, Zvulun is not mentioned. It seems to me that Zvulun is connected with Yisachar, and somehow, somehow it should be part of the connection, but it is not. I don't have a cup here. Anyway, also, we don't have any mention of Dan, but Dan is hinted at. I will show you as we go along. So we have covered many, many tribes, and now we're going to go through Yisachar's Binyamin, Dan, Naphtali, the rest of Menashe, Ephraim, and Asher. And let's go. Pasuk Aleph. Livnei Yisachar Tola Pua Yashav Shimron Arba'ah. Now, one of the problems we have is that Ezra Sofer was working from existing source material about the different lineage of the different tribes. But Ezra lived 200 years after the exile of the 10 tribes. So many, many sources were lost, and he had to work with what he had. So we have to bear in mind that some of these genealogies are incomplete, some of them are non-existent. However, when you see here, what you see here, and I'm going to keep referring you back to, where are we? Second, here. The children of Yaakov, as recorded in Bereshis, when they come down to Egypt, B'nai Yisachar, Tola, Puva, Yob, Shimron. Now, what we have here is Tola, Pua, Yashuv, and Shimron. So, Pua and Puva, okay, very similar. Yov becomes Yashuv, and the commentators do sort of like to darshan on that, like what is going on here. And they say that Shin is given to connect this person, the son of Yisachar, to yeshiva, learning Torah, yishuv, a toshav. All of these indicate a certain stability, a certain settlement, and certainly yeshiva, Torah learning. So they connected, the Chazal connected with the scholarship of Yisachar. We go into the sons of Tola. Pasuk Bet, B'nai Tola, Uzi, Rafaya, Uriel, Yachma, Yivshan, Shmuel, Russian Beit Avatam, Tola, Gibor Echal, Tola, Tamis, Mei David, and Shimshnaim, Elef, Sheshmael. Now, this is mentioned a number of times that the census that Ezra gives now is from the time of the Beis David. And it seems that when David sends Yoav to do a census, these are the results. So there were 26,000 descendants of Tola, and he's only one of Yisachar's sons. And it says here, Giborei Chayil, and it's something to, we see this all through the chapter, and notably at the end with the Bnei Asher. One of the requirements for being in David's army was to have a good history, a good lineage, a good family, solid, good people. So this is what David was choosing, and these are the people. So we're told often in this chapter that they were Giborei Chayil. What does that mean? Brave men of valor. It's the masculine version of Eishes Chayil. These were people who were brave and courageous, able to go to war, able to succeed in Torah, able to succeed in life. And from Yisachar 22,000. Then we go to the other sons here. Okay. Tola has a son named Uzi. So we go to his son. And the sons of Uzi, Yizrachia. Now Yizrachia has sons, Michal, Obadiah, Yoel, Yishia. And notice the word Obadiah here. That's for you, Debbie. That's like reminds me, we have a student, Devorah Lewin, an alum, whose son won the National Bible Contest. Very, very proud of him. Very, very proud of her. And this is a classic Bible contest question. Where else does the name Obadiah appear besides the prophet Obadiah? So here you've got one. And here you have another Yoel. So a lot of Michaels, but Obadiah and Yoel, not so many. So it's an interesting kind of thought. So these all were also great. 36,000. Why? This particular family, one son of Tola, had so many children that there were 36,000. You see, with the other family with only 22,000, and here we have 36,000 from one family. And the Divrei HaYamim notes, they had a lot of wives and a lot of children. Just by the way. Okay. All the other families of Yisachar, Giborei Chayil, also great people, 87,000. So we're doing a census as well as a yichus here. And therefore, take away that Torah learning gives settlement and stability. And now we're going to move to Pasuk Vav, Binyamin. So there's a debate among the commentators. Is this the tribe of Binyamin? Because chapter 8 is only about Binyamin. So why do we need to talk about Binyamin here if we have a whole chapter about it? And that's a whole question that is hard to answer. And there are many things that are weird about this whole thing. But we're going to go with the majority opinion that this is moving along to another tribe of Binyamin. And that what we see in chapter 8 about Binyamin is a lot about their settlements and a lot leading to the lineage of Shaul, the first king. Now, Binyamin has sons here, Bela, Becha, Yediel, 3 sons. However, if we go back to Bereshis, which I told you we're going to keep doing, Binyamin had 10 sons, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Echi, Rosh, Mupim, Chupim, and Ard. I'm very fond of Mupim and Chupim. I kind of think that's cute. We will meet them again. But at this point in time, if we're going with this theory that this is the children of Binyamin, there's only 3. So that's, this is question number 1. Why only 3? And we'll try to get some conclusions there. But we do have to get to chapter 8 in order to totally understand this. Okay, and as much as it's possible to understand such a difficult and convoluted situation. Anyway, Pasuk Zayin. B'nei Bela, Etzbon, Uzi, Uziel, Yerimot, Iri, Chamisha Rashi Beit Avot, Giborei Chayil, Hityachsam, 22,000, Shoshim, V'arba'ah. We have again sons of Bela. This is only one son of Binyamin, Bela. And then you have the sons of Becher. And these are like they have here Sons of Bela, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. 5 children. The sons of Becher, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 sons to Becher. Kol Ela b'nei Becher. And they were related, the heads of household, Divrei HaYamim, 20,200. And then B'nei Yediel. Now, according to the commentaries who believe this is the same Binyamin here, then we don't have a Yediel. We do have an Ashbel. So we're kind of saying that Ashbel is probably Yediel. In any event, this is the third son of Binyamin that's mentioned, and he has one son, Bilhan, but Bilhan has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sons. And these are the sons of Yediel, also great people, also 17,200. Verse 12, Shupim v'chupim. Now, before they were Mupim and Hupim. So again, a lot of names get changed here. I personally prefer Mupim and Hupim, and that's my personal prejudice. But okay, Shupim and Hupim were the sons of Ir. Who is Ir? So we got to go back, and we find that there is a son here called Iri. So probably Iri is the son of Bela, the son of Binyamin. Iri is a grandson of Binyamin, and his sons are Shupim and Hupim, which might be a lot of the names, and you'll see this in the Tanakh in many places, like Tola and Pua. There was a shofet named Tola, the son of Pua. He was from Yisachar. So the names of each tribe do get repeated. They keep coming up again and again. Tola and Pua are Yisachar names. And now we see that Binyamin names are Shupim and Hupim and Mupim and all these people. But we have here a very strange thing in verse 12. Chushim b'nei Acher. First of all, Chushim is only one person. And the sons of Acher, who's Acher? So we go back to Bereshis and we see who is Chushim. We see that B'nai Dan is Chushim. The son of Dan is Chushim. And we know about Chushim because Chushim is a very strong presence in the Medrash. And I'm going to show you this Medrash. I do want to find all the correct things here. So, here we go. I have a lot of stuff open. No. Okay. Oh, I see. That's two things on this page. This is the first part. Okay, this is the famous story of the death of Yaakov. So they bring the body of Yaakov to Marath Machpelah and Hebron. And when they get there, right, Esav says to them, you cannot bury Yaakov here. That's my spot. On the Bechor, it's my spot, right? And the children of Yaakov start arguing with him. You sold your birthright to Yaakov. He says, I could be. I sold the birthright, but I'm still the oldest brother. And this is my burial plot. And they said, you also sold that rights to Yaakov. And Yosef said, my father made me swear, right? Bury me in my grave that I dug in Canaan. And that is in the Marath Machpelah. And Esav said, I don't believe you. I want proof. So they said, okay, we have it in Egypt. And they said, we'll send Naphtali, because Naphtali is Ayala Shlucha. If you haven't heard this medrash, it's actually a crazy, fascinating one. So they send off Naphtali to run to Egypt to get the bill of sale. And Chushim, the son of Dan, was deaf. And he's standing there. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't hear the give and take and what's going on here. And why is Yaakov, our father, not being buried here? So he says, what's holding up the Kvura? And they said, this man, Esav, is preventing us until Naphtali comes back from Egypt with the bill of sale. He is trying to prove that this is his brave. And Hushim said, we have to wait till Naphtali comes back from Egypt and where our father was lying there in the Bizayah, right? He took a club, he hit Ace in the head, and he killed him. So there's two versions to this medrash. The one that's here is kind of gross. So I would give you the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, right? Why are we waiting here? Waiting because this man doesn't let us bury Yaakov. He took his sword, he cut off Esav's head, and this is the famous part. This is the part you undoubtedly heard. The head of Esav rolled into Machpelah, but the rest of his body was buried in Har Seir. So this is the story of Hushim, the son of Dan. Now, there's a very, very interesting story here, and the whole contrast here is very interesting. I'll just come back to the idea of Bnei Acher and state it's very unlikely that this could be another Hushim. And then we'll have to say, why was Dan called Acher? We'll get to that in a minute and proof about that. But just talking about Hushim for a moment. Hush means a sense. And this child, Dan's only son, was deaf. And I think that it's so interesting to give him this name, which is senses. We know it has been shown that a person who's missing, God forbid, one of his senses, the other senses are sharper. So to give the name senses to Hushim, I think is a very kind name for him. And we see in this story that Hushim, the Rabbeim Shmulevitz talks about this story. He says, this man was not going to get bogged down in the details. Let's go to the forest. Let's not talk about the trees. We have to bury our father. This is his place. This man is stopping us. Off with his head, basically. And so Rabbeim Shmulevitz says, this is the greatness of Hushim, the son of Dan. He was not sidetracked by minor points. He did what was necessary to get things rolling. Another interesting comment the Chafetz Chaim makes, and this is really a great mussar for us. In Parshas Pinchas, we talk about the different tribes, and we find that the tribe of Dan is a huge tribe. Now, this is one son, Hushim, and he's special needs, as they'd say today. This one special needs son produced a massive, big tribe, which is a great, great thing. Meantime, the Chafetz Chaim contrasts him to Binyamin, who had 10 sons, and was actually one of the smaller tribes. I remember a woman that I knew in one of my teaching jobs in Amuna, a very old woman. She had one daughter, and I think she was a Holocaust survivor, but I don't remember. And this one daughter had 4 children, and there were tons and tons of descendants. This little old lady used to tell me about her great-grandchild who's getting married, and this one, and it was like amazing. She had one child and had a whole fantastic big family. So Chafetz Chaim talks about it. He says, you never know. You never know. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give everybody brachot in everything they have. And many, many generations. In any event, why is Hushim called the son of Acher? And let me explain to you first why Acher is connected to Dan. Because the next pasuk Gimel, is Bnei Naphtali. Now, Bnei Naphtali, Yatzi Aguni, Yetzer Shalom, Bnei Bilha, this stems with what we have here, Bnei Naphtali, Yatzi Aguni, Yetzer Shilem. I have to say, another one of my favorite names is Guni. Sorry, I have my favorites. I think Guni is a great name. Not that I would give these names to my children, not Mupim, and not Guni, but they're cute and memorable. Now, it says here, these sons were the B'nai Bilhah, the sons, plural of Bilhah. Now, it's interesting, none of the other imamot are mentioned, which is interesting. It might be, to honor Bilhah because she married Yaakov willingly when Rachel suggested it. But in any event, Bilhah had two children, Naphtali and Dan. So it seems likely that because we know that son of Dan was Hushim, and we know that Naphtali's next, and they are the sons of Bilhah, it seems likely that Acher is a reference to Dan. And then we have to ask ourselves, why is Dan called Acher? So there's two basic theories. One is that it has to do with his being, after Acher, afterwards. So that would go together with the bracha. Yaakov gives her the bracha. Dan yedin hamo ka'achad sheteser. Dan will judge his people like others, like all the other tribes. And Dan describes the particular method of Dan's leadership, right? Hanoshech, right? Dan will be like a viper on the path, like a snake. Hanoshech ikvei usus. He will bite the heels of the horse. V'yipol rochvo achor, and the rider falls backwards. In other words, this is a description, according to Chazal, of Shimshon, who infiltrated the enemy and struck them in hidden ways. But the fact that the rider, v'yipol rochvo achor, the rider falls back, so that's one idea of acher. And the other is that Dan was understood to be, we're in the parshas of Bamidbar now, the Digalim, the 12 tribes were divided into 4 banners, and Dan was the Maasef. Dan was always the last tribe. They would go after everybody and make sure everybody had gone ahead. So they were after. That would be one explanation. The other explanation is not so nice, and that is he lost his name here because one of the problems with the tribe of Dan is that they were associated a great amount with Avodah Zarah. How so? And at the time of Pesach Micha, which is chapter 17 and 18 in Shoftim, the Pesach Micha was taken by the Bnei Dan and set up in the territory of Dan. Also, we know that Yeravam ben Nebat set up his first golden calf in the territory of Dan. So Dan became associated with Acher, with Avodah Zarah. You might also theorize that later on, in the times of the Gemara, when Elisha ben Avuya goes OTD, off the derech, he's called Acher. He became someone else. And perhaps they took that from here also. So now we've gone through Yisachar, Binyamin, part of Dan and Naphtali. We move along, and now we get to the Bnei Yosef. So we start with Menashe. Bnei Menashe, Asriel sheyalada Perek Sharamiya Eldas Machira Bigala. So we have here, let's just talk about this for a moment. One of the things a theme that comes very strongly out of this Perek is strong Jewish women. I think this is a very feminist Perek. I will show you how we go along so far, right? Menashe Asriel has a son named Asriel, which is a very great name, sounds like Yisrael. And this is born to him from his Aramean concubine. We don't really get what's happening there. But Menashe is the father of Machir. Machir was the father of Gilad. And Gilad has many sons. And it could be that this is the connection here, because if you remember, we had Hupim and Shupim up here. Shupim and Hupim, who were the sons of Ir, who was the grandson of Binyamin. So it seems that he takes a wife from them, and he has a sister named Maacha, and there is this grandson Slavchad, and Slavchad has daughters. So first of all, we have Bilhah mentioned. Now we have the Aramean concubine mentioned. Now we have the sister Macha mentioned, and the wife of Hupim and Shupim. And now we get to those great 5 daughters of Slavchad. We do not discuss them here, but it's worth noting that Slavchad's 5 daughters were among the great women of the Torah. They are the ones who are, let's just open it here. Vatikrabna benot Slavchad ben Chefer ben Gilad ben Machi ben Menashe lemishpachat Menashe ben Yosef. Notice the great line of lineage goes back to Yosef. Yosef's son Menashe, Menashe's son Machir, Machir's son Gilad, Gilad's son Chefer, and Slavchad his son. And it goes back to Yosef, and Rashi says here, why? Because they're asking for a portion in the land. They love Eretz Yisrael. And Yosef said, bury me in Eretz Yisrael. The love of Eretz Yisrael goes down through the generations here. And in fact, very likely, and it says here, it's telling you that all of the people mentioned here are great people, are great tzaddikim. We're also told that the half Shevet Menashe very likely was chosen to be split, right? Where do we have our map? Right? Menashe, because of their love of the land, those who live far, right? Those who live on the other side will be connected to the other half that's in Israel proper, and will, show that longing for the land of Israel. That will be, the idea was to keep them connected to Israel. And Macha, the wife of Machir, had a son. She called him Peresh, and he had a brother named Sheresh, and they had children Ulam and Rechem, and they had a son Bedan. These are the sons of Gilad, Ben Machir, Ben Menashe. Now we come to another interesting note, another great woman, Achoto HaMolechet, and his ruling sister gave birth to Ishud, Abiezer, and Macha. Hold it. Achoto HaMolechet is a strange thing. We have another powerful woman here. Again, I'm showing you, it's a very feminist chapter. Another great woman. Why is she called HaMolechet? So either her name is HaMolechet, or she is actually a ruler. She seems to be a sister of Gilad, and she has these 3 sons, and she seems to be a ruler of some kind. And apparently, there were many cities that the children of Menashe had, Yair and Machir. We have heard the phrase before, Chabot Yair, and apparently she was given a number of cities to rule in that territory, and that's why she's called HaMolechet. According to the Chazal here, it says that the sister of Gilad, and the Ralbach has a whole connection here to Yehuda and Chetzron, and she had a dowry of 23 cities from Yair. There we go. In any event, moving right along. Now, you have to go back a bit to remind us of who is Shmida, right? Macha's son, Peresh. Okay. We didn't get to the beginning. The sons of Menashe here. Okay, it's not mentioned here, but it's mentioned in other places that Shmida was one of the sons of Gilad. These were brothers of Gilad, and he had a sister, and then these were his children. There were many children of Gilad, and his son Shmida had 4 sons also. Okay, so Menashe has many powerful children and many powerful granddaughters daughters and granddaughters as well. Which moves us to Bnei Ephraim. Bnei Ephraim Shuselach, Bered Beno, Tachas Beno, Elad Beno, Tachas Beno. One of the confusing things about Divrei HaYamim, there are many confusing things, is are we supposed to read this linearly, or are these all the sons of Ephraim? It would seem likely when we have this sort of thing, Bnei Ephraim Shuselach. Shuselach is a son of Ephraim. Bered is his son. Tachas is his son. Elad is his son. Tachas is his son. There were two Tachas, grandfather and grandson. And then we go further. Zabad was his son. Shuselach is another Shuselach. Ezer, Elad. And here we get to a very weird story, which I'm going to spend a few minutes on. The sons of Shuselach, Ezer and Elad, Baharagum and Shegat Hanoladim Ba'aretz, Ki Yordu Lakachat et Mikneim. These people, these descendants of Ephraim, were killed by the men of Gad, who were born in the land, because they went down to take their flocks. A very, very strange story, very weird story. Let's just go further. Ephraim, their father, okay, this is grandfather, mourned a long, long time, and his brothers might be also his sons and grandsons, because he only had one brother, Menashe. They came to comfort him. And he had another son at this point. Vayikra et shmo Beria, ki berai taveto. And he called his son Beria from the root of Ra, because he was mourning, and he called him like this is in a bad place. Now we go on to his daughter, another interesting things here. And from this son Beria, right, he was descended Yoshua ben Nun. We know Yoshua ben Nun is Ephraim. And he also has a daughter here who's also another one of these amazing women who builds cities in Israel. Now we have a problem. When does the story take place about the death of all these people and the people of God? What happened here? And when did it happen? Ephraim is still alive. So is this before the Galus Mitzrayim, during the Galus Mitzrayim? And you have to look at the Gemara here. Now, this Gemara is talking about the dry bones. And the Gemara discusses the story of the dry bones. I'm so sorry, I have something in my throat. Truly annoying. I'm really sorry. You have this thing where Yechezkel revives the dry bones. And the Gemara says, is that a parable or is that truth? And Rabbi Yeshua says, they sang a song when they were revived. Rabbi Yehuda says, it is truth and it's a parable. Rabbi Yehuda says, if it's truth, why do you refer to it as parable? If it's a parable, why do you refer to it as truth? And he says, in truth, it's a parable. You cannot make this stuff up. We're having a very difficult problem with this story. And they don't know how to deal with it. It's probably kedai for us to look at this story because not everyone is familiar with it. This is Yechezkel chapter 37. We'll get back to that. The hand of God was upon me, and the Spirit of God took me and put me down in a valley, and the valley was full of bones. and I was passed around, and there were so many, many, many bones. And they were all over the valley, and they were very, very dry. This story moves me greatly. And Hashem said to me, Son of man, will these bones ever live again? And I said, Hashem, my God, only you know. And Hashem said to me, prophesy over these bones and say to them, dry bones, listen to the words of Hashem. Thus says Hashem to these bones, I am bringing into you the spirit of life, and you will live again. And I will put upon you sinews and flesh, and I will knit you together, and I will put the spirit of life in you, and you will live, and you will know that I am Hashem, your God. And I prophesied as I was told, and there was a voice as I prophesied, and it was a great noise, and the bones came close to each other, and I saw that they were becoming, they had sinews growing on them, and flesh, and skin was coming upon them, but they had no life in them. And Hashem said, prophesy on the spirit, prophesy, son of man, and tell the spirit, thus says Hashem your God, from the four winds come winds, and blow into these slain ones, and they will live. And I prophesied as I was told, and the Spirit of God came, and they lived, and they stood on their legs, a great, great multitude. And Hashem said to me, the Son of Man, these bones is the house of Israel. Behold, they said, our bones are dry. We have no hope. We are cut off. Therefore, prophesy and tell them, thus says Hashem your God, behold, I am opening up your graves, and I will bring you up from your graves, my nation. I will bring you to the land of Israel, and you will know that I am Hashem when I open your graves, and I bring you from your graves, my nation. And I will give spirit in you, and I will make you alive, and I'll bring you back to your land, and you will know that I am God. I did it. I said it, and I did it. Thus says God. One of the most amazing nevuot ever. And now there was a column in Israel, a columnist who called himself Dry Bones. And anyone who lives in Israel for any amount of time feels this, the unbelievable nature of our life in Israel. When you have Yom HaShoah, when you see the pictures of the people who came out of the Shoah, and they were just bones, they were half dead, and they lived, and they had children. And today we see people, many, many people, descendants of those dead and dry bones. And this is an incredibly hopeful and inspirational prophecy. Anyone who thinks they're lost and they're gone and nothing can help, can these bones live again? Hashem says, yes, they can. Hashem can do anything. Getting back to the Bnei Ephraim, who were these dry bones? Who are all these multitudes of dead in that valley? And Rashi says here, a rabbi said, they were the tribe of Ephraim, who left Egypt before the end of the exile, and the people of God who were born in the land slew them, as is stated in Chronicles 7. So this is the story that we see in Sanhedrin. And the rabbis are arguing, is this a parable? Is this a true story? What do we make of this? And yes, it is a parable, but it's also a true story. And while they were arguing this, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera stood on his feet and said, I am a descendant of those people. These are my tefillin that my grandfather gave me from them. And this is an unbelievable thing. You see, Gemara says, who are these dead? Rob says, they were the descendants of Ephraim who calculated the time of the end of the enslavement and the redemption from Egypt and erred in their calculation. They left before the appointed time and they were killed. And the sons of Ephraim, Shutelach and Bered and Tachas and Elada and Tachas and Zabad, Shutelach and Ezer, we just read the Psukim, the men of Gat that were born in the land slew them because they came to take their cattle. And Ephraim, their father, mourned many days, and his brothers came to comfort him. We just read this story. Now, I must say a few things here. There's a lot of confusion in this story, and there's a lot of different opinions. And when did this happen is a very great question. Why did this happen is something you can explore. I'm going to show you, but let's just understand. The people of Ephraim, for some reason, miscalculated the Geula and left Mitzrayim before it was time. Their father Ephraim was still alive, and they were all killed. And it seems as if they got far enough into Israel that the people of Gat, or the people who killed them, right? Gat is here on the coast here, the Philistine area, right? This is Jewish territory, but somehow they came across from Egypt and they were killed there. So this is the valley where hundreds of thousands of bones lay for 1,000 years till the time of Yechezkel, and he revived them. Now, there's an absolutely beautiful piece by Rav Yaakov here. We're running out of time, but it's so beautiful. I do want to share it with you. Rav Yaakov asked the question, right? Radak says, this is before the exodus from Egypt. They counted wrong, they made a mistake, and they went up with a wrong time. So I'm taking this from the Emet Yaakov on this chapter. And therefore, our Chazal say, I'm giving you bits and pieces, what pushed them to do this? Because they were the sons of Ephraim, because their father was an Egyptian citizen. He was born in Egypt as a prince, and they thought they could go out with their power and their strength, but the people of God killed them, and their bones were lying in desecration and humiliation until Yechezkel came. And it's possible to say that these people didn't understand all of Yiddishkeit because they were influenced by Egypt. They grew up in Egypt. And the hope of redemption that was so strong in the other tribes was missing for them. And they grew up with the customs of the land that they were born in. And it influenced them badly, even when Yaakov came and taught them about the promises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were still despairing of the Geula. They wanted to redeem themselves, but they weren't able to. And in fact, right, interestingly enough, and this is one of our great questions, what would have happened to the Bnei Ephraim who came to the land of Israel if they had not been killed? Because they had no Torah. They had no tradition of Har Sinai. But interestingly enough, according to this medrash here, they smacked Nebuchadnezzar on the face, and they said even as soon as they became alive, they were revived by Yechezkel. When Hashem sends him, they felt totally Jewish, like every other Israeli. Now, and it seems to me to explain, this is Rabbi Yaakov at its finest, Why was it the children of Ephraim that pushed to get to the Geula before the time? Why not the sons of Menashe? They were also born in Egypt. And what I spoke about in 1934 in Lita, when decision was made to boycott German products as a reaction to their persecution of Jews in Germany. And I spoke, this is Rav Yaakov telling over what he said in 1934. We always knew, we had no illusions in Lita, Lithuania, Russia, or Poland. We always knew we were unwanted, even though we built these states. And because of the Jews, their economy was strong. But the Jews in Germany, they fooled themselves. They felt they're regular citizens of Germany. And now their illusion smacked them in the face. And that's the difference between Ephraim and Menashe. Menashe knew he was a stranger in the land of Israel. His name told him that. Yosef named him Ki Nashani Elokim et Kol Amali, right? This was his name, the longing for his land. But Ephraim's name is Ki Ephraim. I flourished in this land. And he grew roots in Egypt. He produced fruit. And therefore, how great is the suffering of our brothers in Germany, that their illusion blew up in their faces. And I think of the Jews of America today who felt so American, and it's blowing up in their faces. And this is how the Bnei Ephraim, it hurt them so much. How could this children of Egypt, how could Egypt betray them? And therefore they rushed to leave before the time of the Geula. And that's why the name Bnei Ephraim is given to them, because they're the descendants of Ephraim, who felt himself to be a citizen, an aristocrat in Egypt. A very powerful analysis of Rav Yaakov here, and very sad. And the Bnei Ephraim were punished in this way, and yet we see that there was hope, right? Those bones lived again, and according to Chazal, they came to the land of Israel. They raised children. They were Jewish enough to bequeath to fill in to their grandchildren, who became great Torah scholars. And it's an unbelievable turnaround. It took 1,000 years, but there's always hope. And a Kadosh Baruch Hu can do anything. And so, going back to Ephraim, he called his new son Beriah. But this Beriah became the ancestor of Yoshua. Okay, I'll go back to Sharon in a second. Refach, Reshav, Telach, Tachad, Ladan, Amihud, Elishama. Elishama ben Amihud was one of the princes of the tribe of Ephraim. And Elishama's son was Nun. And his son was Yoshua ben Nun. The lineage of Yeshua stops here. Yeshua had no sons. According to Chazal, he married Rahab after the entrance in the land of Israel, and he had 8 daughters. A quickie here. 1 second. 8 prophets descended from Rahab: Neriah, Baruch, Sariah, Machseah, Yirmiyahu, Hilkiah, Hanamel, Shalom. The marriage of Yeshua and Rahab had 8 daughters, and there were 8 Nevi'im descended from them, including Yirmiyahu. But going back to this powerful woman here, we have so many powerful women to learn them. He had a daughter named She'erah, and she built cities. She built Beit Horon, the lower, and Beit Horon, the upper, and Uzain. I maintain that there is no wimpy woman in the Tanakh. You can't find one. And just to prove it to you, let's just very quickly to Asher. And they all lived in the areas of Beit El, Na'aran, Gezer, Shechem, Aya. And the sons of Menashe lived in Beit Shan, Tanach, Megiddo. And so Yosef's children, Ephraim and Manasseh, lived in those areas. If you see here, all of these areas were Manasseh and Ephraim. And getting back to Asher. B'nai Asher Yimna Yishva Yishvi Bria. He also had a son named Bria. But the one I want to focus on here for 1 minute is Sarah. Sarah, the daughter of Asher, is a very, very famous character. We are so out of time. But just to say, who was Sarah? There's so many midrash about Sarah. That's why I said it's a very feminist chapter, from the daughters of Tzlachah to the Molechet, the woman who governs, right? And then you have this woman, what's her name? Shera, who built cities in Israel. And then we get to Sarah. Sarah was a tremendous tzaddikus. According to Chazal, she's one of the only people who went into Gan Eden alive, like she never died. And what was her greatness? Her greatness, according to Medrash, her wisdom, and she played the violin. She's the one who told Yaakov that Yosef was still alive. She is the one who brings up the bones, she doesn't bring up the bones, she tells, 1 second, is it here? Oh, it's here. So before. How did Moshe know where the bones of Yosef were buried? Right, Sarah, the daughter of Asher. Notice that it's spelled sometimes with a samach, sometimes with a sin. She was alone, left from that generation, and Moshe said, "Do you know where Yosef is buried?" And she said the Egyptians put a metal coffin in with him in it into the Nile. In other words, that they thought this is like a good schooler for their crops. And Moshe called Yosef, and the ark, the coffin came up, and that is how he found. So Sarah, her first medrash is about telling Yaakov that Yosef is still alive, and now another medrash about the bones of Yosef. We find her turning up also much, much later in Shmuel Bet, wise woman in Aveves Macha, who saves the whole town from Yoav and gives over Sheva ben Bichri. We keep seeing midrashim about Sarah. She was a very, very wise and great woman. So again, I always find it fascinating that the Torah just tells you about these great women. You don't have to beat us over the head with it. They were great women. Anyway, Beriah's son, Heber Malkiel, he was the father of Birzeit. Now, Birzeit, we know today is a city. It seems that this is actually a city also, a city of olives. We know that the bracha of Asher is me Asher Shmei Melachmo, Hu Yitei Madarei Melech. It was a very, very oil-rich territory. So this name, Birzeit, is actually an Arab town that preserved that name. That seems to be a town with much, much oil. Heber's children, and Yafle's children, and Shomer, and Helem, and Topha, going all the way down. These all were the children of Asher. And the children of Asher were all heads of their household, choice people, great men of valor, princes of their tribes, and they were all counted in the army, and there were 26,000 of the B'nai Ephraim, and that was a very, very it's an important point that we make, that all of the descendants, all the men of war in the time of David, we said that the census is probably taken the time of David by Yoav. They were all great people. That was their yichus. Okay, so we're going to move now in chapter 8 next time to focus on Binyamin and Shaul, and after that we'll be heading out of the genealogy and into some more action. I'm going to stop the screen share. If anyone has any thoughts or questions or comments. I can hear you now. I should be able to hear you.
Hi, Esther. First of all, thank you very much. I have a question. Sarah, She had a special code that she gave to that she brought down to Egypt so she could let him know. Like when I was like Pachet something, she knew a code. Do you know what I'm talking about? She knew a code so she could say he's still alive.
I think she played a tune. I must confess I didn't get to looking up the Serach sources, which I really want to do.
But she
I,
played music for him to like ease him into
because
the
the news of Yosef being alive, they
mhm,
were afraid it would be so much of a shock. So they wanted her to soften the shock by
the
playing.
music.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I don't
also,
remember the Midrash, but I have to look it up. I prefer to show you things inside, but there was too much stuff going on today. I mean, first of all, I
okay,
didn't, and I got a little carried away with Rabbi which is so unbelievable, beautiful piece. And yeah,
as
Bezrat
soon as
Hashem,
you said it, I was thinking of America.
it's like he was talking about Germany in 1924, and those people were like so shocked. I'll tell you, we went to be Menachem Abba Rabbi Kimchi when he lost his mother. I don't know if you know Rabbi Kim. He's a rabbi in England for many years. He taught in Shapell's many years ago, and his mother was from Worms, Germany, and she was 18 years old. And I don't know. Can you hear me? Because there's some background noise.
Mhm.
Okay,
I think it's for me. I'm sorry.
so there was she was 18 years old, a Beis Yaakov girl. She lived in Worms. At the time of Kristallnacht, she was visiting an older woman friend of hers, and they came into this woman's apartment and they broke all of her glass, they slashed all of her linens, they took her piano and threw it out the window, and she and this woman were cowering in the kitchen in terror. I will never forget this story. I was so shook up by it. And she came back home and she told her parents, "We have to leave Germany now." And they said, "What happened?" She said they destroyed everything in her apartment. And the father said, "But I served in the German army in World War I. Like, I'm a German patriot. No one's gonna do anything to me." And she said, "You don't understand. It wasn't thugs. It was doctors, lawyers, accountants, people I recognize with hate in their faces. There's no future for us in Germany." And her parents would listen to her and they fought about it for a while. And then she picked herself up and she went to England. And she was the only survivor of the whole family.
Wow.
And I remember, like, he was telling us the story, and he showed us her safer. She took one safer from her burnt out school, one safer that didn't burn. Everything was destroyed that night. And I was so, like, I felt so bad. And the only thing I could think of was that, like, must have been like a comfort for her parents at the end that she got out and she lived, the dry bones. She had children. She had Rabbi Kimchi, a wonderful person, and they had a wonderful family. And it's like that, that bit where he writes about it, the poor Germans, like in Lithuania, we didn't expect anything better. But in Germany, they thought. And I couldn't help thinking about Americans who feel so American and like,
Oh.
how did this happen? How could it happen? They really hate us? Shock.
It's not just America, it's every country now. It's almost every country around.
Yeah, but I think Americans like felt like it can't happen there. Um,
Can I
yeah.
ask you another question, please?
Here the dry bones live again in Israel. We're living that. We live that. Yeah.
If Ephraim was so flourishing in Mitzrayim, why did they push to leave early?
No,
I think I
because
missed something.
the I'm sorry, it was not clear. The point was that Ephraim grew up as an aristocrat, the son of the king, Yosef. and he was powerful in Mitzrayim. So when they turned on the Jews, the shock is exactly what Rabbi was saying. The shock for Ephraim was much worse than for anybody else. Like the rest of the Jews were like, okay, this is what God predicted. But Ephraim was like, wait, I'm an aristocrat. I'm the son of the king. My father, if it wasn't for my father, he'll be dead. And so the slavery was much harder for them, for the Ephraim and his descendants. Like, how could you do this to us? So it was more painful for them. And they were like, we don't have to put up with this. We're just going to leave. But it wasn't the right time.
And they could?
Yeah.
They could leave?
So that's the interesting thing. How did they get out? How did they get away? So there's two versions. I mentioned it. There's like different versions. In this pasuk, it says the people of God killed them. But there's other opinions in the Chazal that the Egyptians killed them. It's a very murky story, not clear. What is clear is that the bones were revived. But, Chazal understand it to be the Bnei Ephraim, but that's not written anywhere. This is okay. All right then. All right, take care. Have a good night.